Colorado's got that it factor.
Yeah.
Their football program has dominated headlines throughout the offseason because Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, is a megastar. He was interesting at all his previous stops, and nothing is going to stop him from being interesting unless they lose. And I want to get into that in a little bit. But the most recent thing that's gotten in the news, fellas, and lady, is that Colorado had a little skirmish at their practice, their fall camp, and Deion Sanders chastised everybody and was angry at the rest of the team because they went to the sidelines and didn't really get involved. The quote was, "If one of us fight, we all fight." And, it's one of those things that gets aggregated, and Colorado Buffalo fans, once again, fall in love with Coach Prime. We're still very much in the honeymoon phase. Dominique, you've been in several training camps, and you've seen several scraps, and your coaches probably managed that differently. What was your main takeaway first of how Deion handled this situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's a Deion thing to do, and because he is Coach Prime, it's going to get more attention and get people to their corners on either side. And Coach Prime is one of those people, especially after the decisions he made around the black college that he was coach at, and made it appear as if God sent him to be there, and made it appear as if his goal was not to better his own position, but to better the MEAC as a whole. And that has been pretty polarizing for a lot of people. So when he does something like this, lots of people jump up when this is really more benign than anything. I've had coaches who stand by that. Normally it's not the head coach. The head coach is normally not that guy. The head coach is normally kind of steps back from something like this. The D coordinator, the defensive backs coach, that's the one that's like, we're all a family, one fight, we all fight. That particular thing doesn't bother me nearly as much as Deion setting himself up for what seems like a tough run, because him and his cowboy hat are presenting as if they are going to be instant competitors. And I think expectations matter, and especially when you're as public as Deion Sanders. It could turn on him quick there. And I don't dislike Deion Sanders. Obviously, I'm a cornerback. I have reverence for Deion as a player and see what he's become, and frankly would like him to be successful. I'm not rooting against him, but I think he's setting himself up.
I think their wins total right now on DraftKings is 3.5 games. And last season, Colorado was one of the worst teams in terms of offense and defense. And they are playing against, I think, 5 preseason top 25 ranked teams this year, plus the rest of their, Pac-12 schedule. So even aside from the fact that you have to rebuild a roster from scratch, and you had all these players that left in the portal, whether by choice or because Deion kind of wanted them to leave, it's going to be a tough season regardless. It's a first-year head coach in a conference that's pretty difficult, the last ever Pac-12 season that we're going to have. So the expectations are really, really high, and I think it's going to be an uphill battle.
The Deion brand is so built on success. I'm very curious to see what happens if they go over on that established total of 3.5 and they have 4 wins. It's still, for his brand, going to be considered
being bowl eligible would be great for Colorado in general. But I think the way that the hype has been set up around this team, it's we're playing for a playoff position, which is a good thing to tell your team, but also a really hard thing to do at Colorado in your first season with really shaken up roster.
To your point about the portal, he made his introductory address to the team, and he said, "I'm bringing my luggage with me, and it's all Louis." And a lot of people got excited, and it's a honeymoon phase, and Colorado really hasn't mattered in quite a bit. And when players leave in the portal after your spring game, because they've had good spring games, you'll talk yourself into, we're better off without them. Not if you look at the depth chart, not if you look at the output, and also, okay, you're cleaning out the locker room from bad apples. Hell, I toted that propaganda for an entire season. But also when you're having decommits, there are cause for concern that people may not be picking up on as much as they picked up on you taking Cormani McClain. What I'm saying is his entire brand has been flash and bravado, and that's with good reason. because he's succeeded everywhere. He's succeeded instantly everywhere. Pretty much everything that he's touched has been successful, and that's his whole MO. I don't expect him to handle it differently, but what happens when the brand and all that shine has a little bit of tarnish on it?
He's succeeded in multiple sports and multiple industries, and his success as a coach, normally you don't see great players go on and become like great coaches, but I think a lot of his success as a coach is tied to the fact that he's Deion Sanders, and that like when you're a high school coach, you're gonna do pretty good with recruiting local kids to your area when you're Deion Sanders. When you're in the MEAC, you're gonna probably have a leg up when you're recruiting when you're Deion Sanders. I have yet to see the evidence that he has some sort of recruiting advantage at this level, and I don't mean to disparage him, but I hadn't heard of Deion Sanders as like the master tactician. So like his way to success, once he takes the cowboy hat off and starts to coach, it seems like it's going to be a rocky road.
Well, he has established a staff with some degree of pedigree over there, and there have been good stories when it comes to the recruiting, most notably sealing a 5-star Cormani McClain, who at the time was Miami's highest-rated recruit since DJ Williams, and he does very well in recruiting cornerbacks. Why wouldn't you want to get coached by arguably the greatest cornerback of all time? He does relish in the role of father figure. I think that there's like a tether for him, that he likes to be this father figure for a lot of the players that he recruits, and he's successful there. And to your point about religion and trafficking on it, Dabo has really risen to the heights of that sport in doing it.
He's no tactician either.
Despite making some people uncomfortable with it, there is an audience for it, and you can recruit it well. This schedule does allow for them to get immediate buy-in. If they perform well early on, this is one of the great stories, and it doesn't necessarily matter. But if they get trounced, is he going to start pointing the fingers, as he's been someone that has in the past? He's already called out players that have left. He's already called out players to their faces. I don't – and also, does he have the resources there to actually help put – his brand in the best position to succeed? Because from what I've heard a couple of people say all hat, no calf, like all dough, no show, but actually all show, no dough, right? He doesn't have the support over there to make this happen. And I don't think it's actually going to be successful if I had to bet on one of the two.
But I think what won't be successful will probably be the wins total. What has already been successful is selling Colorado as a football school. They're joining the Big 12 next year. They're not one of the 4 teams that's being left behind, like Cal and Stanford and Oregon State and Washington State. And I looked on ESPN, and their first home game against Nebraska, the lowest ticket is like $250 right now. That is just not something that's happened there. Against 2 unranked teams playing each other in week 2. A $250 ticket is pretty wild for a Colorado home game.
I guess for Colorado, they've put themselves in like a no-lose situation. I think as far as they're concerned, they've elevated the perception of their organization. Or not their organization, their program. If Deion does not succeed, I think the job is more attractive now than it was before Deion went there.
You think so? Because I think Deion might be the type to call out exactly why it failed, and he'd throw people under the bus. And look, they're a little bit limited in their resources,
right.
And I've heard from people already around the administration that they don't necessarily have the same kind of control that they've had before. And it's great initially, but you mentioned they're in a no lose situation. I'd say that they are in a plenty lose situation on the field.
I think relative to where they were, though, is my point. Long term for them, and they got to beat one of these teams. I think that I understand that Deion is talking about championship, but I think the fans of Colorado and the fans of college football are much more reasonable. And I think once this season goes on, if he knocks off one of these ranked teams, we'll all be like, well, maybe not us, but most people, the thought will be, damn, wait till he gets a couple years of recruiting under his belt.
Yeah.
Wait till he gets comfortable. That team is a power waiting to be, which no one would have said that about Colorado in recent history.
No, they won a national championship in the 90s, but there's plenty of people like Jess probably has very little memory, if any, of them being in the national conversation.
When I think of Colorado, I think of Kate Fagan and her 3-point record, and that's pretty much it. The other thing is like joining the Big 12, regardless of how Deion does, it's a very stable league right now. They're well positioned to be okay for the next, for the duration of their television contract. They're not making the same amount of money as the Big Ten are, and even the SEC are. Yeah, Jeremy, we get it. UCF is in the Big 12 this year.
I didn't say anything.
Absolutely, the most annoying person on earth about UCF.
I didn't say anything.
But like, even if Deion like completely fails and leaves after 3 years, like that's a contract that it's not going anywhere.
Do they get in the
and
Big
I think
12 without having hired Deion?
I do think they get in the Big 12.
Conference realignment is a lot about like the geography and like where the TV market that you.
And they have a history with the Big 12. I do think that they get in the Big 12. Brett Yormark has done an incredible job as commissioner, and that's not really his background. And I think he's showing a lot of people that you can just stroll in if you've got a certain mindset. But I do think that they get in there, given their history, given their geography, given the fact that they're this new state that they can open up for their TV package. That's probably more important than Coach Prime, but it's a nice little shiny thing to put in front of your marketing partners over there. I do think that they need the one galvanizing win, though, to make people believe in this program, because if it's just failure after failure, it's going to be a lot of pointing fingers. There's going to be exposés done on, hey, their NIL situation is a little funky over there, and it kind of caps you unless you're one of the top players there, and that's why these players have left. So I do think that he not only needs a galvanizing win early on, not just for his own program that he's trying to run there, not just for national perception, but also to get some people to actually support this program, because he's found that harder than he thought.
Why does Jeremy keep doing the YMCA in the back of the room?
Oh, that's just the UCF. U and then a C.
People don't know about that thing, Jeremy.
If you thought UCF fans were annoying before
in a real football
this
conference,
year,
the Big
this
12
is going to be tough.
with more money than FSU and Miami.
I don't know how we're going to do
Please
this.
stop.
How'd you get
a
that
real
money?
football
Was
program.
it Sean Toohey?
No comment.
You want respect for UCF so bad.
Well, we got him to shut up.
No, I liked it. I appreciate it. I wanted to sit
Go
there
Knights.
and watch
Charge
them
on.
Squirm.
Go Knots, really. Citronaut rebrand.
Please stop.
UCF fans I didn't think of before. I don't think I know any other.
Answer
than
for your
Jeremy.
Michael
It's me.
Orr sins.
Yes, answer.
I have no sins.
You do.
I'm good.
I
Go
need to
Knights,
answer
though.
for mine. I'll let Samson off the hook. Sorry.
That's fine.